Hi, my name is Sascha and I'm a life and leadership coach, speaker and trainer and the host of I'm Your Coach. Today I have with me Tom Meyers. Tom Meyers was born in Antwerp, Belgium in 1970. Today Tom is an osteopath, body-centered stress coach with a private practice in Brussels, keynote speaker and author. He recently published his first book, Futurize Yourself, Design Your Life on Purpose. For the International Stress Management Association, a charity based in London, Tom also hosts a yearly free online stress summit that is organized on International Stress Awareness Day. Hi, welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Sascha, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Tom, you just published the book, your book, Futurize Yourself, Design Your Life on Purpose. What is the book about?
The book is about finding your purpose and meaning in life. There's so many people out there that are looking for that meaning and for that purpose. And I was one day just saying how did I get to be here after a period, 14 years earlier, where I was really saying this is not what I've signed up for. Okay. And when I had that realization from what were all the steps to get here, and decided to write it into a book.
Okay. Yeah, because it's interesting that an osteopath and stress coach writes a book on personal development and purpose.
Indeed. But we also see that when people are not living their purpose, when they're not finding their potential and doing, for example, a job that absolutely has no affinity with their purpose, that often they also get more stressed, and that that has an effect on how their body is. It becomes much more harder, much more prone for disease and illness, or even sometimes a blocked back or neck or shoulder problems. And with those patients, I do see. So when you go a little bit further into the story of osteopathy patients, and you really start thinking about the cause, which osteopathy should do, because it's holistic, so it's not only about the body, it's also about the mind and about the spirit, it makes completely sense.
Okay. And so you said that it was also something that was a part of your own life?
Yes.
Of your own, let's say, voyage to become a stress coach?
Yes, so. I was trained as a chef once upon a time, and I worked in small luxury hotels as a waiter, and ended up to be a sommelier on the cruise liner Queen Elizabeth II, which was very renowned at that time. And from that life in catering in hotels to becoming an osteopath, a speaker, and a stress coach, well, yes, that there was a moment in my life that just needed, where I needed to change because things were not going so well for me.
Yeah, that seems like really a huge change in life planning, I would say. How did you get there?
Yeah, so it's a story in a way where the book starts with, because people have to know why, for example, me at 29, I wanted to end my life because I didn't see any meaning into it anymore. It was like you have these beautiful moments, but in between these beautiful moments were just more and more depressive moments where I thought I'm getting knocked down each time. And the last straw really was I was running a deli, selling charcuterie and cheese, and after 2 months I was already so depressed because one, it wasn't running properly, or it just didn't work. I didn't have any clients, and secondly, I just didn't feel well in that environment. I was there 7 days a week living in a box basically, and living and working in a box, while I had been used to traveling around the world. Yeah. It was such a contrast. And suddenly I imagined from something that, my dad and another family member had said one day, Tom is good for nothing. Okay, this is not what my dad meant. And it was in a moment of frustration, that he couldn't be proud of me because I was not the ideal son, because, I wasn't excelling in anything. And, a parent wants to be proud of their their son or their daughter when on Monday they go to work and say, my dad has done this and they have such good points, and for me he couldn't say much. So there was a bit of a frustration, but of course as a child you take that up and you absorb that one phrase, and it marks you. So when my business was not running very well, that's the moment that I proved that my dad was right.
Okay, so it's actually a self-fulfilling prophecy in a certain way.
In a certain way, so I said, my dad is right. I'm good for nothing. I couldn't see myself go on to living this really mediocre life that just always was battle. Luckily, it was the local pharmacist who I had befriended, and who was the first person that I ever had discussed my personal problems with.
Okay.
So I was 29. I never, ever had talked about my personal problems. I never had shown any signs of having personal problems.
And looking back at that, how important was that for what would come afterwards?
Well, that was huge. Because one, finally somebody I could talk to who I felt understood me. Plus, she understood me so well that she sent me to another person, say, that person is going to help you, which could be seen as a life coach today. But of course, 18 years ago now, life coaching, that didn't really exist as such. You go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I knew from personal experience, because my mother went to see these people, and she needed to see this because she was very ill all my childhood. I was not sick. Yes, no, my mother was sick. I was not sick. I don't have to go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist with my problems. So when she sent me to this coach, everything changed, because at least this person, what she did with me was she made me look, first of all, at my experience, and making me look in a different way, shedding a new light on the past. And by doing that, immediately by saying, no, Tom, it's not because you're not good enough or you haven't excelled today in things, it doesn't mean that you can't be. You just haven't found the right topic, the right skill, the right part of you that you could excel in. As soon as that is integrated, life changes right there, right then, and your future. Yeah.
So you had, if I summarize a little bit, you were even at a point where you were a little bit suicidal. You were thinking about ending your life.
Yes.
And you needed somebody exterior that believed in you to destroy your limiting beliefs a little bit about yourself.
Exactly.
No,
exactly. Yeah. That is exactly what happened. So in the first 2 hours, it really was about revisiting life. And this person really said to me, what are you doing here? Tell me your story. And so when I started to tell my story, and when I started to say what I feel within me is that one part of me goes like this and another part goes like that. And I think it should be like this. For some reason, by reading just a few books just before this crisis on purpose of life, by Edgar Cayce, or that was stories on Edgar Cayce, where I found that there is a personality and there is an individuality, and it's like these two things are with me in complete conflict.
Okay.
And so individuality is what you have as potential, and your personality is basically from when you're born what you've been created. Okay. Around yourself. Yeah. And for many people that personality is in a way what your parents want you to do, or is created by
So it's your conditioning.
It's conditioning,
yes.
And if for many people the parent is like this, so the daughter must do that. The father or the mother, they ride horses, so the children must ride horses, or the pharmacist must become a pharmacist. So in this kind of conditioning, sometimes that might be perfect match, but for some people it isn't. So you have this kind of individuality that is within you, which you were born with, and then the skills that you have learned while living, and when these don't match up.
And how do you find your individuality?
How do you find it? Well, I would say read the book. I found them through 3 specific questions. And the questions that I received were, I was able to look by interpreting my environment. Basically, it is from what do you see in others, or what do you admire in others? Describe that. Describe what do you admire in that other person or the persons around you. And it's not the money, it's not the house, the car, it's not what they have, but it's the character, or it's a skill they have, it's something they exude that you just say from, wow, I wish I would have that. Then
why is that important, you think?
Why is that? Because if I look at the same person, I look at a person and you look at the same person, we might see something completely different. And that is what resonates within us. That what we see and admire and that we don't have in our life is most of the time something that is within us that needs nurturing.
Okay.
And it's like seeing that the outside is the mirror of ourselves, the mirror of what we can be good at, but also what we are missing. So it's about seeing that. Also, you can also see from what is good in another person, you know, and that you have that as well. So it's a skill maybe that you share. But in this case, I didn't have any skills. The only skill that I have was being a waiter. That was really the one thing. I didn't see myself do that for the rest of my life. So I saw in other people, they're great communicators. All my friends, they were walking dictionaries. You could ask them something. They had a great way of transmitting that information, and I really admired them for it. So when I sit still and ask myself the question, who do I admire, and have a look at my friends around me, at the end, when that boiled down, was communication. So, and I had never really spoken before, or I didn't think that I did have that skill. That was for others. I can never be like them. Well, that obviously has changed. So when then the second question came is what do people see in you? So basically, what do people ask from you? Oh, Sascha, you did that so great. You know, that was really, you're really good at that. Or, for example, this weekend, I was in Hamburg. I was following a master class. And the teacher asked me, Tom, can you show me your approach that you developed in front of the class? And I was a bit taken aback because, I'm not there to teach. I am there to learn. But of course, that's also part of the learning. So I went in front, gave a demonstration and some explanation. And the teacher afterwards said, wow, that was great. You should be a teacher.
Yeah.
You see, that's the part. So you're doing something, and afterwards saying from, wow, that was amazing. And sometimes you don't think it's special. Most of the time we do things naturally, and all these things, they're not special. They're just, everybody can do that, no?
Yeah, because this is what, it's always the problem, no? We always see what other people can do, and we admire them for that, but the things we do good ourselves, we usually minimalize them, and we say, well, everybody can do that, it's not that difficult, because it feels so easy for us.
Exactly, but that's just exactly one of the talents, the skills, and the potential that you have, that you need to explore. What are you expressing? What do people see in you? Because for example, another skill that I have is therapy. Okay, I was running my shop, and you stand behind the counter, and clients that would come in, even the ones that I'd never seen before, when they're alone in the shop, they start to talk. They start to talk about their problems, and they start to talk about personal things. And I never really thought that was special. But then when, the coach asked me think about it. So people tell you their stories without you asking them. They trust you. So what does that mean? What does that mean that you exude? And I thought it was such a difficult question. And she asked, and she really hammered me into why, this kind of deep going questioning, until it came out from, but you are a therapist. You exude that to other people, and people trust you naturally. And it's something that I had never, ever considered. But it was true. Then I looked back into other episodes of my life, and it was true that I was, the psychologist in a way of my mother from the age of 14, which I don't recommend to anybody, but because I was a born therapist in my own right, in my potential, maybe just that's why my mother did it anyway. You see? So, but also friends, and you can always, people come and tell their problems. So that's the way you can analyze a little bit also from how does the outside see you, and what can you learn from that?
Yeah, because what I sometimes find difficult, even if I know, for example, what I'm good at, or people tell me what I'm good at, what do I do with that? I mean, how do you come from people tell me stories to I become a sociopath?
So I'll tell you how to do that. But before we go to the third question, and because the third question is an element that we have to bring in, and that is, what have you already done that you say from, wow, I wish I could do this for the rest of my life. For me, it was traveling. I had locked myself up into a box of 4 walls, 7 days. I needed the freedom. Yes, it was so important to me. So when you start analyzing all the things that I did, so I had communication, I had therapy, I had research, I had teaching, and I had travel. So these 5 elements. When these were, discussed in a 2-hour session, and then I went home and she gave me another question, or more like a homework. And she says, okay, now imagine in 10 years' time an ideal day. And there comes the answer to your question. It's about, what do I have as potential? What have I found? What are the elements? Now, how do I put that in 10 years' time? Because you need to visualize all these elements into a life. And then it becomes much easier. Because so in my life has to be therapy, travel, there has to be communication, teaching, research. So what I wrote down as the basis of my essence that I want to live was, I'm a therapist, I've developed my own approach, I've written a book about it, and I'm asked around the world to give presentations and workshops. So that was my vision. And then that's your meta structure. Also, Michel de Kemeter, who you interviewed previously, he talks about this. Your vision and all that. That you have to have something to live for from within your potential, and then you just start filling that in. Say, that's what I want. So, what can I bring into my life? Do I need to study again? I did. I needed to be a therapist. I went to kinesiology courses at first. And as soon as I did that, I was home. Yeah. My teacher said, have you done this before? In the first 2 hours. And I said, no, I've never done it. But this feels like normal. It feels like I've always done this. Oh, but if you like this, then you have to do that. And so, it's like suddenly you're being pulled towards that vision that you've just created. And then a year later, I said, do I have to become a doctor? No, at the end of the day, it was, the choice was really more like, or osteopathy or Chinese medicine. And I personally chose for osteopathy because I'm not Chinese. It was like, it felt for me more right. And it is really right.
But that you go to the medical sector in a certain way, that was clear for you with the skills that you had. That you went to?
I never really thought about it. I'm a therapist, so is that a medical thing? I didn't even know when I started. I just wanted to do something in the therapy area. And 2 months after I had set my vision, so basically that is designing my life on purpose, the pharmacist again, she came to me and said, well, I'm going to this workshop on kinesiology. It's a presentation, or, you know, don't you want to come with me? So I did. And when I saw that, I said, but that's a therapy I can do, because you didn't need any medical background. And that's how I got into it, really.
Yeah. So if I summarize what we were just saying, so there are 3 questions. So it's what do I admire in others? So because it resonates with something that is within me, probably something that needs to be nourished, that is there a potential maybe, or something that I need. And then it's what do others see in me, so to get a little bit an outside perspective, so that you're maybe clearer, because you might also misinterpret your own strengths, of course. And then you have this this third question where you are you're doing your homework and you do a visualization of where you want to be in the future, let's say 5 or 10 years.
There is one more. There's the one that you've already expressed yourself. And so there is 3 questions plus 1.
Okay.
And so you have, what do I admire in others? What do others admire in you? And what do I admire in myself, in the sense of what have I done that for the rest of my life I would really like to do? And there are things in your life that you've done, you say from, yes, you know, this must be in it. This is such, you know, this was so great. And to put it into an example, I wanted to sell more wine when I had my shop, because, you know, I needed to make money. So I created a wine course. I had the background as a sommelier, so I created a course on how to taste wine. This is a time before Google. Yeah, and so I went to get books and wrote my first presentation on how to appreciate wine, and the workshop attached to it. So when I was doing that research, I was just completely absorbed. I love that. You know, I can be absorbed by gathering information and structuring it into a context, and then giving it as a presentation. Yes, so all that preparation is something that I really feel great in that moment doing it. So that's the skill that I was doing, that nobody had told me about. That research is something that must be part of my life, because I need to have time for that.
Yeah, you figured that out yourself.
So, and then with those 3, the answers to these 3 questions, then comes the +1 into the visualization. That is the complete formula, how I transformed my life, yes. And designed it on purpose.
Yes. And I suppose this is what you describe a little bit in your book.
Indeed, that is, I describe it like that, but it's also about you recognizing certain stories within you through the stories that I tell. And also to really, it's a how-to book at the end of the day. It is, in a way, a biography. It's a how-to book, but also a futurizing book, because of the element. When I was writing, how do you describe an ideal day in 10 years' time? In that moment, I was watching a film by Gerd Leonhardt, which is a Swiss futurist. It was a little YouTube of a couple of minutes, where he's saying, but in the next 20 years, we have more changes than in the last 300. Can you imagine that in the next 20 years, there is more change happening than the last 300? Look already at the last 10 years since the smartphone came out, in a way, and all the changes that have happened up until now. So in the next 2 years, we're going to have 2 times more changes happening in our lives. Now, I was thinking, what's meaning and purpose still got to do with it? Can we still give that a place into our future when everything is changing so fast? I really had a bit of a mini crisis, because of, this has no meaning anymore. This book is passé. I've waited too long. I should have done this earlier. And I continued, though, researching on this, futurizing aspect. What is it? What is going to happen? What do these futurists say? So I went to read the books. Also, Gerd's book, Technology versus Humanity. And there I also found, but we have to take happenstance out of happiness. You have to create your happiness. And I thought yes, my book is actually very valid, because how do you create happiness? is by, finding your, your potential and putting it in a purposefully into a life that makes you fulfilled. So I continued writing that next story. So I added a chapter of all that I had experienced by watching this video and all the things that I did, and why we should be more concerned about personal development, self-actualization, and finding skills and purpose and meaning in this fast-changing world.
Yes. So overall, I mean, it's a book on how to find your own purpose, how to find it out, but it also is obviously a little bit about your own story. So I know there are a lot of sections where you describe also the periods in your life that were not so easy.
Yes,
you know, with diary entries from the times and so on. And you also show a little bit where the society is going.
Indeed.
And why it makes it even more important for people to find out what is important to them, what is nourishing them, and how they can live their humanity.
Yes, exactly. If you really look at the, from a stress response, health, well-being, meaning, purpose, the first and the second industrial revolution were all about challenges to our body. Yes, because a machine could produce more, it could be faster, it could lift more. So we were challenged on our body element. And how did we overcome that? Well, a machine was not intelligent. So we used our mind and created not labor jobs, but we created more service-oriented jobs, which a machine couldn't do. Because we were intelligent, a machine wasn't. But in the meanwhile, we have created intelligent machines. And they're becoming really smart. And smarter by the day. So at this moment in time, in the third industrial revolution, which started in the 1980s, we have not only a challenge on our body, because automation will even, reduce jobs that are automating systems, or that in automated systems like car manufacturing, for example, probably will disappear. Taxi drivers probably will disappear, and there's so many other jobs. Cashier will probably disappear as well. So accountants even have a risk of disappearing. So there is many jobs that are going to go because of automation, artificial intelligence, and so forth. So what is going to be left? Okay, you need a very high IQ to maybe become an engineer. Will a cashier become an engineer? Some might have that capacity because they have the potential that can be developed into that if they're still young. But there is a whole kind of challenge coming. So, but how are we going to overcome that? Well, it's the spirit economy. Body, mind, spirit, because at this moment the machine has not that capacity. The empathy, and the thinking that we can do, the creativity, we still have to put it into a machine. But also that spiritual part, which we probably have to learn to define what that means in a human being, that will be the next level, how we are going to navigate all these changes with during the fourth industrial revolution. So this is going to be interesting. So the more that we can prepare ourselves by finding meaning and purpose and really looking inside of us of what is our potential and what needs to be in my life, probably the solution to navigate that fast-changing world in the future, and stay healthy and stay human, and because the risk is that we become transhuman when the technology is integrated, then you lose your humanity and you lose a lot of things. So the spirit economy, or the spirituality, or whatever we want to name it, that's really, the next level of our evolution, which is great. So technology is giving us a chance to be better at being human. This is just wonderful.
Yeah, in theory, it takes away all the crappy work from us in order we can develop ourselves as humans, no?
Yeah, so there is a futurist, Christian Kromme, from Holland, which I had a chance to interview myself. And he says, well, technology will be like an autonomous nervous system. Aren't you happy that you don't have to think about your heart beating? Right. Imagine that you always had to think about heartbeat, breathing. So No, it's done by an autonomous nervous system. So you don't have to think about that, so you can think about other things. Well, let's see that technology can become that autonomous nervous system on another scale.
So they would produce all the products we need, they would produce the food we need, they would do the distribution. You would not have to worry about your clothing and your food, etc., because it's done by
and your self-driving car. Okay, one problem with that is the more that is automated, the less that you have to make decisions. You have to be careful that your brain doesn't become mush, which I mean, your brain is like a muscle. You need to stimulate it, use it or lose it. You need brain to be wired. You need your brain to be stimulated. We need a sort of resistance to grow stronger. Also, but we need a resistance that is making us stronger in the right direction. For example, if you are a cashier, you lose your job and you're going to do another job, which is outside of your potential, you get a resistance which you're not made for. And probably it will always be difficult and challenging, and you probably get depressed and you probably get sick from that. But if the challenge is within your potential, within your learning and evolution, now that you can deal with, and it will be far more rewarding, but you have to be able to make the difference. You have to be able to know what the difference is of each challenge. And when you have a purpose, a long-term vision where you're going, you know exactly which one is for you and which one you can learn from and which one is for your evolution and which one is the one that is showing you that you're not on your track.
And do you think that everybody has the potential to be in a spiritual economy or to develop this kind of things? Or because there might be people, maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe they don't have the capacity to do this kind of works or to do the kind of things that are then required, maybe.
We'll see. Fundamentally, I think everybody has the potential. You're human, we have that potential. Of course, when long-term stress and trauma changes your body, changes the neurological structures in your brain, which might impede that personal evolution. But that's probably, can we say that is for a certain purpose or not? I don't know. So yes, I can see that a lot of people are going to struggle with that. But that's why people like you and me are here, to help those people as well, already today, to prepare for the future. Is that by ikigai, or is that by helping them to find their purpose, or is it by me personally helping people become well in their body, to have a body that can think clearly? Because, for example, if you're stressed and if you are very tense, thinking becomes more difficult. It's like yesterday I had a patient in my practice, and she didn't really have any serious problems. She just wanted to meet me and have a session and see how it was going. She was a yoga teacher, so she's quite in tune with her body, and she's a little bit here, a little bit there. Well, I just want to just have a bit of a feel and just spend some time for me. Now after the session, she said, whoa, I can think so much clearer. It's like suddenly my vision and my head is so much lighter and much more clearer. And now that I think of it, I've been having this for the last couple of weeks, that my head feels a little bit compacted. But in that moment when she came, she wasn't really thinking about that. It was not a problem. You get so used to it. So many bobos that we have in the body, we get so used to it that we don't think about it anymore. And it's so often that, oh, I forgot, while I'm treating them, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, but I have already this kind of, problem in my lower back that has been there for weeks and sometimes years, because people get used to it. So we may not forget, that to help people today, people that are, as the question was, will everybody be able to do that? We are there for everyone. Yes, to help them with different means to grab knowledge. 2 weeks ago, I had a question for Thierry Geerts, which is the CEO of Google Belgium. And I also asked him, how do you see this? Are we emotionally and physically capable of all these changes. And one thing he said, was so important. We have to live in hope. So what we do, we have to give people hope, insight into what is coming, insight to the changes, insight to what they can do, and have them a little bit of inspiring them to be intrigued enough to research the technological transformation period, but also intrigued enough to find some potential within them, because he said, because fear leads to stress, and stress leads to illness.
Yeah, that's a wonderful word, because it's like in coaching or in therapy, you try to get the people out of victimhood, and so you make them autonomous and responsible for their own lives in a certain way. And this is exactly what he's saying a little bit, to inspire them, get them intrigued by the possibilities rather than shocking them by the potential outcomes of the technological revolution that is upon us.
Yes, and we need to be like a bit of a father to the people, in the sense that we want them to be responsible, but at this moment a lot of people need a little bit of aid on the way, that it's not only from I'm here for you, but also to really more actively help them to that next level, which they don't know about themselves yet. And this is a role that we have to take, which is very difficult, because yes, I like to leave people into their autonomy, into their self-responsibility, but I'm also seeing that with the challenges that we face, because of seeing a little bit further, we need to, or I as a therapist really need to listen to what the demand is of the patient, the one that he's not expressing, but has, and to accompanying them, that person, in those processes, and helping the body to cope, because you can make a lot of changes in your mind very quickly, but before your body integrates that, it needs a lot of time. Some people say, but I'm living my purpose and blah blah, and my body is letting me down. No.
Then there's a mismatch.
There is a mismatch. The body is the tool, is the vehicle that needs to be taken care of. And there is a lot of people out there that are, and that need more body work with the transformation, with the psychotherapy, with the coaching. You need body work, because it's the body that needs to integrate these changes and move forward. To put that in a very simple example, personally with me, in my evolution, I've grown 2 centimeters.
Okay. So even as an adult, you've grown...
As an adult, I've grown 2 centimeters. And that is normal, because I used to be shy, I used to be timid, I was not feeling well, so you start walking like this. But over the years, when I started to be more in my element, my body needed to open. But it got stuck physically. So my back needed to be manipulated on a regular basis to be released, which is a decoaptation, to open up, open up, open up. It's just to help me for my spine curvature to follow me, because, till 29 and after it was curved. So it needed to be a little bit more straighter. It wanted to be, but it needed to be helped physically to do that. When that curve started to move, also here I needed to be freed. Muscularly, fascia and my thorax needed to follow after that. So I've really been following my body's change into being 2 centimeters bigger at very close hand. And it took some time. It was not one day up to the next day. It was a 2-year process that needed to be accompanied. And a lot of people forget that.
I think it's important that you keep in mind that as a person, we don't have to do it all ourselves. I think taking psychotherapy or coaching or regular osteopathy, it's still considered a little bit of something is wrong with me, rather than saying, every good sportsman or politician, they have their coaches as well. And even though they are the best of the best in what they're doing, they continue to be accompanied by other people, because it's so important.
They can't be the best of the best without that.
Exactly.
And it's the way I describe it, it's even in the book. So my cells, I've got trillions of cells in my body. Every single cell has the potential for healing itself. But if it doesn't work, it has the cells around it to help. And also, when that doesn't work, it has an autonomous nervous system or an immunity system to help it. And if that doesn't work, there's a doctor, an osteopath, and a psychotherapist, and there is so many other parts around us that can help that cell to be well. We are never alone. So even if on a microscopic level, my cells are not doing it only by themselves, they get help all the time. So are we. If you go to the macrocosmos, we are also a cell that has a lot of potential, but sometimes we need aid from the outside as well. So I'm really seeing this kind of reference between this micro and macrocosmos, and I say it's just normal that we get help, and that we have a palette of experience of people around us, and go and test things to see from when I have this problem, I know I have to go to that person, and with another challenge, I have to go to this person. So this is it's very normal, but we have to learn that yes, we are a society. we are together in this.
Yeah, it's like a body in the end.
At the
we
body.
are all the cell in a body.
Yeah, and in many ways also, every cell has a function. But in principle, in the DNA, it can be any other cell in my body, but no, it isn't. But imagine that my skin cell says I want to be a heart cell, yeah, and it migrates. Do you think it will survive? Do you think it will survive the beating, of my heart when I'm saying the skin cell? Yeah. So it's made to be a skin cell. It can, it can really deal with what I'm doing here on my on that skin cell. But when it migrates to my heart, it will be tough. It will, will become stressed. It becomes sick. Nobody likes that cell. Yeah. So also there is something to learn of that, because when we are in our purpose, we fit in our environment much better. And certainly our environment changes also. It's not only us, the environment changes with us. And to observe that so close over the last 18 years, it's amazing. It's amazing the things that happen not only within, but also outside of you.
Yeah.
And that is, I really, the book is there for people to really, to share my knowledge, my experience, but say look, this is something that is not just theory. I've lived this, and I've really watched it very closely, because that's who I am. My research comes up in me, and my observer comes up in me, and I just loves that.
You're the living example of your book. Let's say.
I am. Yeah. Yes, I am the living example of everything I do. I am who I am, and that's nobody sees me any different. So that is really, it's a privilege, but I've worked hard for that.
Okay, but I think that's a very wonderful closing, actually, of our interview. If you had one thing, as I usually ask one last question, yes, which is, what would you like to tell our viewers? If there's one thing you could transmit, what would that be?
Don't forget to take your body on your journey.
Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Sascha, for having me.
Thank you. Well, if you want to know more about Tom Meyers and his book, so you can check out the following websites, which is www.meyerstom.com, www.futurizeyourself.com, or on the Online Stress Summit, they also have their website, which is onlinestresssummit.com. As usual, I will also post all the information on our Facebook website, which is Facebook/Human Connector. And if you would like to know more about myself, well, you can follow me on the social medias, or you check out my website, which is ikigai-coaching.eu. I am Sascha, and I am your coach. Thank you very much.